Astro Friends. This is Astrology AF, the show that talks everything astrology, above and below the totally real, not at all illusory sky. I'm Sunny, your host with over 30 years of chart reading experience.
And I'm Boots, your hostling with almost 30 years' experience questioning innocent people to tears. We're here to walk with you through the twinkling starlight into the basic, the advanced, and the obscure.
Hi, Astro Friends. Welcome to Astrology AF, the place where we can discuss all things astrology. I'm Sunny.
And I am Boots.
And we're here today to launch our planetary series. We decided it was a good idea for us to go through all 9 of the planets and one at a time and talk about who they are, what they mean, what they signify in a natal chart, in a horary chart, etc., etc.
And we're also going to be covering the sun and firstly the moon. And we're going to follow what's called the Ptolemaic order. Ptolemy is an ancient astrologer from Egypt who had a particular order that he did things in, and it has become kind of a tradition. And so we're going to follow that by starting off with the moon. So the moon, for anybody who is not familiar, is the big white thing in the sky, many nights out of the month in a night chart. So for anybody who was born after sunset and before sunrise, the moon is called your sect light. And charts are divvied up into 2 primary groups. There's night charts and day charts. And in a night chart, the luminary is the moon. So Sunny, do you want to tell them a little bit about what that tends to, what we look to the moon for in a natal chart?
Sure. So I talk to a lot of people who disbelieve astrology because, well, I'm a Gemini and I'm nothing like a Gemini. And my first question, whether it's spoken or just in my head, is, were you born at night? Because if you were born at night, it's very possible that your sun sign may be like, it's not really me. That doesn't really feel like me, you know. But if I were to talk to you about your moon sign, you would be like, yeah, how'd you know? it's a funny little thing that happens. And whether you were born at night or during the day, that is an ancient astrological technique of sorting people out, you know, night or day. It has fallen out of favor quite a bit. A lot of the so-called modern astrologers don't use it, but it's very effective.
So when we're looking at the moon, it still has significations for people who do have day charts as well, right?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
And it's just that it might not be as prominent to you if you have a day chart. And also another thing that tends to come into play is that people who find themselves more on the feminine end of the or feminine area of the gender spectrum tend to have an easier time identifying with their moon sign. And people who are more on the masculine side might have a harder time identifying with their moon sign, or it might be something that they don't really see in themselves, but they can tend to project it onto either the feminine people in their life or just other close relationships that they have. And they can start tending to look to that for sort of that more yin, inward looking, nurturing energy that tends to be associated with and projected by the moon.
Right, right. Well, and a lot of the language that is written in the books, I mean, you have to remember that from antiquity until about what, I don't know exactly when, but we didn't really have, we had 2 genders. We didn't have the they thems, those kinds of melding or blending of a little bit, you know. Um,
Yeah. And
so
more so that it just wasn't talked about, because in a lot of these we're talking about um like universal laws and stuff. And there's, even when talking about the polarity of different energies in occult topics and in magic, they talk about masculine energies and feminine energies.
right,
And so it can be kind of a touchy subject to bring up, just because there are people who find themselves betwixt and outside of what we would consider the binary. And I know a lot of people might already be familiar with that. There is a long and lesser known history of varying identities that people can have inside of that, but people are animals. And like the gender spectrum is talking about energy, you still have, it's kind of along the lines of like you have a north side and a south side, or a positive side and a negative side on a battery. And it doesn't mean that one is good or one is bad. They're just delineations to signify that they do different things and they act in different ways.
right. And the thing is, I mean, we have to remember that these books were written by people
Mhm.
who had their own lens, their own way of looking at things. And so when a person on the male end of the spectrum, or the male spot of the part of the spectrum, um, reads about the moon, and it's like, oh, feminine and breasts and you know breastfeeding and babies and all these things, and it's like, there's nothing here for me to connect with. I don't feel connected to any of this because it's all incredibly gendered, because it was written by an astrologer who was bathed in the gender of their time.
Right.
And it's not the same as the gender discussion that we're having now.
Right.
So, I would challenge um, male identifying people who say, well, I'm not feeling it with that moon sign. Look a little deeper, look past the girly stuff. You
Mhm.
know, there's stuff for, we all have emotions, you know,
Right.
and the moon is very much about emotions and about the changeability of our emotional states. We all have that, regardless of the way we identify.
Right.
So,
Right. And everybody has, at least talking about in the sense of reproduction, everybody has two parents. And even if you're from, for people who were literally born in a test tube, which is a very, it's a valid way to be born.
right,
Um, it's you have, um, those sets of chromosomes, and it's just a part of nature, and both sides are in everybody, and everybody is a combination of both, whether they have more of one than the other or not. And if you think you have more of one than the other, you might just also have some like internal stuff that you haven't quite gotten to yet, because it's there. You've got it, baby.
yeah, yeah. And the thing about, I want to come back to the gender stuff for another second, not to belabor
Yeah.
the topic, but there's no gender in astrology. The gender that is used in astrology is a metaphor. So just like if I'm giving a reading and I'm using horse riding as a metaphor for something, it doesn't mean that astrology is about horse riding. It just means that that's a metaphor that I found useful to share and to capture what I'm trying to convey. feminine signs, masculine signs, feminine and masculine planets. Those are metaphors. That's not real. That's not. Saturn doesn't have genitalia.
Yes. Right, right.
You know, Saturn has a particular vibration, which a lot of people just, can come to a description of masculinity in connection with that. But there, you can also, I personally like having Saturn be feminine. So, a crone, the wise old woman. But the reality is Saturn is neither.
Right. Saturn's a ball of gas and rocks.
Yep. And it's choices that we make in speaking that make and using metaphor, because it's all metaphor. I hope that people will rethink their approach to, especially when they run across gendered language that is not vibing, that's not working for them. To recognize that, so throw it out. It's not real anyway.
Right, right. Take what you can get out of the underlying meaning that the author is talking about, or that the speaker is trying to get across. Try and salvage what you can out of it, even if it doesn't totally fit with your world view and the experience that you've had. Something that's been that I really took to heart, that I learned when I was younger, was to listen to what somebody is saying and not how they're saying it. And that can apply both to the exact type of language that they're using, as well as, the tone that they're speaking in, or any number of things, and just kind of reading between the lines. And sometimes you might say, like, oh, this person has the best of intentions and is just not the most couth in the way that they speak. Or you could find out that they're really couth in the way that they speak and they're actually an asshole. And so it can go both ways.
Yeah.
But anyways, back
Anyway,
to the moon.
so the moon
Go
is
ahead.
the closest planet to where we are. A lot of people, a lot of times the order is reversed. We say the sun and the moon, but if you start from where you're standing and start moving outward, it's moon, sun, Mercury, so on and so forth.
Right.
So that's one reason. I mean, I don't actually know what, I should know this. I don't actually know what Ptolemaic order means. Is that what he's referring to? Is the distance?
Yes, so he's talking about the proximity of the specific body to the Earth itself. So
Okay.
from a geocentric standpoint, which is what astrology is primarily based off of, because it's how things look to us. So the Ptolemaic order of the spheres from the Earth outwards is the moon, Mercury, Venus, the sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and then the fixed stars. And so we'll be going through it in that order. We'll probably get to Saturn and then go Uranus, Neptune,
Right.
Pluto.
Because Ptolemy didn't have those outer guys. So,
Right, exactly. His vision wasn't that good. Um, so yeah, but from our point of view, the moon is the closest one. And so it's considered to be really, in a lot of ways, the most if the one that acts the most strongly on us. And this has a lot of other literal and symbolic imagery to go with it. The fact that the tides follow the moon, the fact in a lot of ancient literature, and for many people, menstrual cycles follow the moon. And you have all of these ancient cultures whose calendars and days and the way that they measure time is all based off of the moon, because it is the closest and the most obvious. And it was almost certainly the first one that we noticed outside of just the sun.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so you have this energy out there. And like we talked about in the uh eclipse episode, things happening with the moon are the earliest forms of astrology. Is one of the first things that we ever followed as far as eclipses and that sort of thing go. So it really had a very big impact on us as a species and as our various cultures, and the way that we saw the world and the stories that we projected onto it. So, as far as the various significations of the moon in many traditions, it's looked at as being what is inside of you. It's a light, but it's the light that's out when it's dark out, right? And so it's what's visible on the inside of us. So it's things like our emotions. And in modern day psychological astrology, we talk about it as being the subconscious, and the parts of us that are there when we're comfortable and relaxed, and how we act instinctively, and our intuition, the position of the moon, the sign that it's in, the aspects, the angles that it's making in relation to the other bodies in your chart, can tell you a lot about those inner parts of you, as well as we were saying, your mom, the mother in your life, or the mother figures that you may have had, which is why it's interesting that you can have siblings who all share the same mom, and no matter how closely they were raised together. For like me and my siblings, we all have totally different moon signs. I have a Pisces moon. My younger sibling has a Gemini moon. My older sibling has a now I don't even remember what they've got, but and each of those reflects our different experiences of our mom.
Right.
And
Each of you will describe your mom in a very different way.
right, which plays a lot into how, like with chart synastry, and when you're looking at the way that you get along with somebody else. For me, I found that I really get along with Pisces moons. Like, we just get each other on kind of that deeper instinctual level. My partner has a Pisces moon. My father-in-law had a Pisces moon. All these different people that I just feel this very deep connection with, long before I ever knew what astrology was. Now later on, looking back, I can go, oh, that makes sense. And then when other people have like different, I also have a lot of friends who are Scorpio moons, God rest their souls. And the moon is in fall in Scorpio. It's considered to be in a position of weakness. That's not throwing any shade at Scorpio moons. Like I just said, I love you. But also I'm sorry. And I get along with people who have water moons really well. And then if you find somebody who maybe your gut reaction is you don't like the person, you may have a moon square with that person, or a moon opposition, or if there's somebody who you just like, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just nothing.
So there's a couple things when I'm reading a chart that I really love to look at for the moon. One is, what house is the moon in? House and sign, but especially house. For example, if someone has a moon in the 7th house, I'm talking to them about, relationships matter a lot to you. You are very focused on, on the importance of relationships. I've had people that have had their moon in the 10th, and I've talked with them and they have confirmed. It's like, you can't just do any old job. It has to be something that really matters to you,
Mm.
you know. Um, and so stuff like that, where it's, if moon is in the second, then there's it sounds cliche, but your bank balance really matters to you, know? Um,
Yeah,
knowing that you have resources to cover your needs, is a really important, it's a really important thing for you. So that's always fun. I don't do a lot of relationship uh, synastry charts, but when I have, the moon is huge. The moon is very, very important in that. You know,
right.
having moons that are what's the word? Getting along. There's a word
Yeah.
for that I can't think of right now. Cooperating, you know. Um, Also, for moons, when we're looking at a chart, a horary chart, which is, horary is a branch of astrology where you ask a question. Am I going to get the promotion? Um, whatever question.
Mhm.
And the moon is so important that it, no matter what, no matter where, it helps signify the answer to that question in a horary chart.
Right,
So super important.
right. And if it's from my understanding, if it's a me question, if they're asking, or if I'm asking, will do me and this person have a potential for being good friends or something like that, or will I get the promotion, or how will I do through this court case or hospital, yada yada. Then the moon can also be a secondary significator for the querent, for the person asking the question. And then if it's a question that's like, how long will such and such take, or if you ask the classic question of, where is my cat, um then, and you're still looking at the same, if you ask, where's my cat, and you get the answer, and then the next question is, okay, when will the cat be home, you're not, if you cast a new chart, it's going to basically be the same chart, right? If it's only been like 3 minutes that it took to answer that question. You look at where the moon is, and uh, using all the different significations of what modality is it, cardinal, fixed, or mutable, and what sign it's in, how long it's going to take to get back to the point that represents me, and that tells you how long it's going to be until the cat gets back home. And so it plays a major part in horary astrology, especially.
Yeah, it really does.
Another thing that can happen in horary is, and if you're looking at like significators and you're trying to suss out what means what in a chart, the moon will represent things that are white for obvious reasons. It can also represent babies, or it can represent anything that's new, or like you were saying earlier, anything that is consistently changing as well. And so there's you kind of have to get a little bit creative, and a little bit of intuition plays into figuring out what will signify in a horary question chart. Some of the common significations for the moon are that it is classical astrology. Every planet, every body in the sky, as well as every sign, has a temperature. It has a humidity, or like a how much water is associated with it. Um, and so for the moon, it is cold, it is moist. Each one has a part of the day it's associated with, and for the moon, that is night. And its gender, which we won't cover again, you can rewind if you want to listen to that bit again, is feminine. It will also represent liquids, things that are soft, things that are bland, things that are formless, and things that are new. It represents midwives and candles. And oh, if you're trying to figure out where's my wallet, the moon signifies lost things. It also will represent intoxicants. And then, like we were saying, the mother, and especially in night charts, it represents the mother. Your experience of the moon is something that if you haven't paid much attention to, I would really strongly recommend getting into and figuring out, because it can tell you, it can illuminate a lot about the harder to see parts of yourself, especially if you are a day chart person. And if you are, if you are somebody who has never identified with your sun sign, look into your moon sign. Look into kind of what that means a little bit more, and you might start to see some more connections being made that weren't so apparent when just looking at the sun. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to our Mooncast, and I really hope that it was a good one. If you enjoyed listening to us, then go ahead and feel free to go check out the rest of our videos and tune in for the next ones. If you like our channel, then like this video and hit the bell and do a little ring-a-ding, because we really appreciate that. It helps with the algorithms.
Hey, to keep getting more astrology with Sunny and Boots, like and subscribe.
To talk with Sunny in an astrological consultation, visit sunnysastrology.com to schedule an appointment. To reach Sunny and Boots about the show, email us at contact@astrologyafpodcast.com.